How's it going tonight, John?
It is going tonight, Eric. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Uh, it's been a long week.
Been a rough week.
Yeah. How was your weekend?
Sorry, yawning. I had let's see. My boy and I referred to it as the weekend of pot hunting. And
Okay.
I let that linger there so the joke sinks in.
In Oregon. In Oregon, yeah. I don't think that means what you wish it meant.
No. So my wife's grandmother, or maybe it's great-grandmother, I think it's great-grandmother actually, had a fern. And when she passed away, when my wife was young, maybe it was grandmother. Anyways, a fern. And they divided the fern plant that Grandma had forever up into a bunch of different parts. And we have had this fern, and my wife has been taking care of this fern for as long as I can remember. And she wanted to put it in a new pot because the pot that it's in is a little old and starting to show its age. So she
Clearly
asked me
she
to go.
has a green thumb if she's kept
Yes.
it along for as long as you've known her.
Yes, and I think I don't think any of her brothers or sisters listen, but I think it's the last of the division of ferns. I think it's the only one still left alive.
And still there was one. All right.
Yeah, so
you're pot hunting.
yes, because she wanted a very specific kind of pot that matched the room that it was in. So I don't know if I mentioned on the podcast. I painted a room.
Now that you've painted the room, you need to.
Now we have to change the pot to plant.
These are secondary effects.
Yes.
You might even say side effects. Okay.
Yes. So that was my boy and I went to, I think, 8 stores on Saturday. Kind of home and garden centers, your Home Depot and Lowe's, Ace Hardware. We even tried Target, any place that might possibly have a
and were you successful?
No.
Oh.
I think we got close.
This is not what a story is supposed to be like, I think.
Well, no, this is just what my weekend was like.
Oh, I see.
Right?
I
This
see.
is just, how was your weekend?
Oh,
unsuccessful. There.
Your weekend
that's
was
the
an
end of the
unsuccessful
story.
pot hunt.
That's right. And it should always be an unsuccessful pot hunt, kids.
Something like that. Oh, that's funny.
How was your weekend?
I have to remember. I don't know why I can't seem to remember. I can't seem to remember what we did on Sunday. Saturday, though, was homecoming for high school, although he went to a different high school's homecoming. So anyway, but we kind of had like a parent night where the parents kind of had a potluck while the kids all got together, and then one of the dads went and dropped them off at homecoming and the homecoming dance, and they had a time, I guess. We were the main adjectives I got out afterwards were it was hot and noisy. Like, okay, kind of sounds like a dance.
Yeah. My daughter went to their homecoming dance as well, and the student, it was 1,500 students crammed into this common area, and she came home and says, "Dad, if you got stuck in the middle, there was no getting out, and you couldn't even put your arms down. You had to have your arms up the whole time. That's how packed it was."
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Sounds like you had fun.
Sounds, yeah. I gotta say though, I guess somehow we decided Saturday that we were gonna bring a cake to. Oh, actually, no, that's right. We decided we were gonna make a cheesecake for the potluck kind of thing, and but then when we looked at the instructions, we realized it was going to have to like chill for 8 hours or something like that, and we had like 4 hours to go. So we were like, nope, I guess not. So what about a carrot cake? And so we made a carrot cake. Mostly Shirley made a carrot cake, but I helped. And It was the most delicious carrot cake I think we've ever made, and carrot cake is my favorite cake. So I was over the moon about that. Unfortunately,
You had to share.
I got like 1.5 pieces, but it was 1.5 pieces of deliciousness. But I'm gonna blame the particular tastiness on the fact that the applesauce. Who knew a carrot cake recipe had applesauce in it? I didn't. But it had applesauce in the ingredients, and we used our homemade applesauce that we made a month and a half ago. And I think that I'm gonna blame that because our applesauce is really, really good. So I don't know, but
I can attest to that.
That was. Have I given you some applesauce? Oh,
yes, you have.
Well,
I enjoyed it very much.
Good for me. Yes, our applesauce is we like it. So, unfortunately, it's kind of a pain to make. So, I guess it's not as bad as apple butter. Anyway, that was fun, and of course we sank a bunch more fence posts. So hey, there you go.
That's right.
I think our goal was we weren't sure how much longer we could use the tractor, but we figured we could sit out in the rain. So we did the stuff that we needed the tractor to kind of go for. So yeah. Anyway,
right.
We'll see. It's all good. We still have I still have a couple of years left on this multi-year project. So just one day at a time.
Fence posts forever into the future.
Fence posts forever. Yeah. Don't depress me. All right. I see you put something in follow-up.
Yeah, so my follow-up I threw in there was something I actually saw today, or maybe it was yesterday, and it's follow-up because I tried to find the episode really quick. I didn't find it. I had a something fun. I believe it was a something fun on a website that taught you kind of an introduction to quantum computing. So
I remember that.
You remember that? Yeah. So the bit of follow-up I have
unless we cut it out.
The bit of follow-up I had was Google has claimed to achieve quantum supremacy. So Google came out and said, hey, we just built a quantum computer. It's called Sycamore that ran a program. I don't remember what it says. What the program was. Performed a calculation, some kind of calculation. I didn't read the full Google AI blog. This is an NPR article on this, but that they were able to run a calculation in 200 seconds that on a supercomputer today would take 10,000 years. So that's the definition of quantum supremacy, is being able to run something in a short enough time on something that would be infeasible for a regular or even a supercomputer to do in its lifetime. However, IBM immediately pushed back and said, nah, we could perform that same operation in 2.5 days on their supercomputer. So it's still early days. Google even mentions here that they called their success kind of the hello world moment of quantum computing, being able to do this. There's also some disconnects, which I don't quite understand, between Google posted say it's a 54 qubit processor, and then the article says it's 53 qubits. So, but anyways, just a follow-up on, I think we're probably going to start seeing more quantum computing in mainstream news. And the security angle to this one, of course, is one of the presidential hopefuls here in the U.S. Has commented that he's now concerned that quantum computing will render password encryption useless.
Yeah.
Which is, depending on how your password is encrypted, either true or not true. So, anyways. Short little piece of follow-up.
I'm reading the debunking link from Scott Aronson. Right. So,
right.
Okay. Well, I'll leave it. I'll leave the tab up so I can read it later.
Yeah, read it later.
Okay, that's cool.
Anyways, so that's my bit of follow-up.
That's cool. All right. That's good.
Following on from follow-up, I have two articles. They're both, I think originally I had that quantum computing as my actual topic this week, and then I thought, no, that's really more follow-up because it was really short.
Yeah. We have talked about it before.
Yep. So I have two mobile device, what's the right word? Faux pas? Unfortunate incidences.
A series of unfortunate events.
A series of unfortunate releases in mobile. So, the new Pixel 4 just came out, and Samsung just released the Galaxy S10. The problem with the Galaxy S10 and its fancy fingerprint, so the Galaxy S10 is the one where there's not an actual sensor. You just kind of put your thumb on the screen in a certain area so that the sensor is part of the screen.
Yeah.
The problem with the S10, the Galaxy S10, is it just needs a fingerprint. It doesn't necessarily need your fingerprint.
Pretty much everybody has 10.
It just needs a fingerprint. So, of course, Samsung has promised they were going to issue a security patch, but I'm sure you do, because I do as well, with the ease of use with these biometric things, I use that to unlock my phone. I use that if I'm going to unlock my banking app. A lot of the apps that I use that require password would typically require a password. Now can be opened through either thumbprint or face recognition, depending on your device.
Yep.
Well, if you are a banking app and you allow anybody's thumbprint to
just
open
awful.
that's not going to work for you. And so there are a number of banking apps that have pulled their apps from the Google Play Store for the Galaxy S10 because of this issue. So Samsung's got to work on that one. So there's that one.
Just pulling the app doesn't disable it for everybody that's got it. Everybody who has the app on their phone, which, you might stop the trickle of new people that are downloading apps every week, but that's,
yeah.
I don't even remember when the last time or when I first installed my, a banking app on my phone. It's got to have been near a decade ago.
Yeah. And I have no idea what the market share of the new Galaxy S10 is either. So the Venn diagram is probably not that big.
But... Oh, I see what you're saying. You're saying that they can pull it from just that particular model.
Right. Yeah. So yeah. And anybody with any other model, they'll have it just fine. They can get it. It just won't be available for Galaxy S10 users.
I see. Okay. Well, that's both not as bad and potentially more useful than I assumed.
Still a little bit of a black eye.
Oh, well, yeah, the overall sensor. I think, somebody asked me the other day, he was like, I'm surprised you're an iPhone user. And I didn't really push back too far, but in my head, I'm like, man, Apple puts a lot of work into their security that a lot of other, let's call fast followers, Touch ID, that's not nearly as good, or at least it wasn't for the first, few years. And, I don't know. I'm a little in a bad spot lately because of some of the security issues that have happened in the last 6 months with iOS, and a little bit frustrated with the iOS 13 bugginess.
Yes.
But I'm certainly not to the point where I'm questioning my let's call it platform choice.
Yeah.
Mr. Dual Phones.
I do enjoy. I still have the Pixel 3, and I'm debating if I want to upgrade to the Pixel 4. And I think maybe I'll wait a little bit because the Pixel 4 has done away with the fingerprint sensor like the iPhones did, and is the only biometric option is face unlock. And if you have the iPhone, the idea behind the face unlock is, it makes sure your eyes are open so that you're conscious, so that you can see, so your kid can't kind of come over to your face while you're sleeping and wave the phone in front of your face and unlock your phone, or however you want to do that. The problem with the Pixel 4 is it doesn't require the eyeballs to be opened. So it still works.
Shocked that they shipped that without. I think that's called something like attention required.
Well, yeah, and if you read their note in their settings for the feature, there is a toggle switch require users' eyes to be open. So they've clearly known about it. I'm wondering if this was just we have to ship the hardware with the software now. I wonder if they got themselves into a little bit of what Apple did with iOS 13.
Yeah, could be.
Had the software not ready, but the hardware had to ship because dates. So
yeah.
But there should be a fix in several months. But for the Pixel 4 today, if you use the face unlock feature, your kid could wave it over your sleeping face and unlock your phone. Which with the iPhone, if you close your eyes, it won't open.
Right. Well, once you're used to biometric unlock, though, can you imagine having to type your code in every single time you unlocked your phone? It would be...
Back in my day.
Yeah.
Get off my lawn.
You have to walk uphill in the snow. Related, I heard something this week that's kind of follow-up, if I had remembered to put it in follow-up, but it's probably worth saying here when we're talking about Pixel 4 attention. But remember in the betas of iOS 13 for FaceTime, they had something called, I forget what it was called, but it was like attention correction.
Yeah, it moved your
do you remember that?
Your eyeballs to make it look like you were looking at the person instead of the screen.
It used
the creepy factor.
The creep factor was strong with that one, but they evidently that disappeared from the release version of iOS 13. So whether it just wasn't good enough, or whether the kind of collective gasping of yuck was heard at one infinite loop. That did not wind up shipping.
Right.
So that's probably just fine.
Yeah.
Just fine. All right. Well, I have a couple articles as well. My first one is a new attack. This is a ZDNet article. New attack called CP-DOS, or Cache Poisoned Denial of Service. And there are 3 variants. And it has, according to this article, been deemed practical in the real world, which is, I guess because they actually were able to accomplish it, and then actually test a whole bunch of different CDN providers to see who was vulnerable to which of the 3 variants. It's kind of a cool table in the article in a minute, but basically this is done by tricking I guess first we should say a CDN, or a content delivery network, is used to display or cache content so that it's cached and staged closer to end users around the world. So it's really
right.
It's a service that's pretty much required for any large scale web presence these days, because all the scripts and images and non-dynamic content can be cached at the content delivery providers' points of presence around the world, and then they can be retrieved super duper fast, and that's the whole point. But this basically tricks the CDNs to store a cached copy of an error page, basically, that was returned from the website. So the 3 variants of this were basically depended on how you kind of forced the error in the first place. So there's a header oversize, a meta character, or a method override. And there's a link in here to more details if you want. But
this looks so simple, though.
Right?
It doesn't look complicated to be able to do this. Huh.
No. Well, the mitigation, the primary mitigation is CDN providers should honor the HTTP spec is what the big one comes from, which is that they're basically not supposed to cache anything but 404. So let me actually read this from the quote. The web caching standard only allows CDNs to cache error codes 404, because that's not found, 405, method not allowed, 410, gone, and 501, not implemented. The whole point of those being cacheable are that those are error codes that shouldn't be temporal, right? I mean,
right.
Those are
right.
Those are super bad ones. But if you're caching a 400 bad request, well, now
the websites could still be perfectly valid.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the big one. And there's some comments in here that say that, CDNs should have settings. Most of them have settings about in their control panels for whether or not they can cache error pages. And if not, you can, if you were a website owner, you could actually add a header to your error pages that basically say cache control, no store. But that's kind of the funny thing here. But so the two other points that's worth saying in this, the first of which is that the table in here is really interesting, because although there are certainly CDNs that are vulnerable, it varies by client and by the actual CDN. And the one that is the worst in here is apparently CloudFront. So
wow.
I'm trying to do a count. It looks like all of the other major players are only vulnerable to a few, like 3 vulnerabilities, but CloudFront is a solid column of problems, solid column of pain. Funny, huh?
Wow.
Did you see that?
Yeah, I'm looking through it. So the blank the dot is not susceptible, or is susceptible to potential. I don't understand what the dot is if they're all vulnerable.
Well, so maybe I was making the assumption that the dot meant not vulnerable.
Oh, okay.
But maybe it means
that's what
everything.
I would assume.
Yeah, I'm sure the table came from the more detailed article. So I would think the actual answer for that. Hold on.
Yeah, I guess I'm just looking because Apache TS, I mean, there are rows and columns that are dots and everything. So why even have that dot in there if it doesn't mean anything? Or does it actually mean something and I'm not reading? Or is it Google Cloud Storage because Google Cloud Storage is not susceptible on anything if I'm reading this table right, for example. Or Squid, not susceptible to anything. Or Apache TS running on anything in the world, or Nginx running on anything in the world, or Squid running on anything in the world is not susceptible. So Squid has dots on the X and the Y axis. So I don't know what that means.
So I'm looking at the table in the actual paper, and the columns, so, the IS, Tomcat, Squid, Varnish, Amazon, S3, Google Cloud Storage, GitHub Pages, blah, right? All of the servers. Those must be the ones that they were testing. But there is a legend that says that the dot is no CP/DOS attack detected. So I think it does mean nothing. And so if there's something that's particularly safe, then it's particularly safe. But the only 3 that I see are Apache TS, Squid, and Google Cloud Storage.
Yeah. So I guess that's if you use this HTTP implementation, we don't see it on any of these caches.
Right. Exactly.
So maybe it's just a general, here's the most popular HTTP implementations, here's the most popular caches, and here's your mashup.
Yep.
Okay. Got it.
Although I'm also not sure why, at least in this table, some of the vulnerabilities are in parentheses and some of them aren't. I don't know. I don't know what that means. It's very, it's very funny because, yeah, they're right next to each other. So I'm not sure what it means. Anyway, okay. Anyway, that was my first one because that's a interesting thing.
Yeah. So really, the end result of that really is just making it appear to an end user that your server is offline.
Correct.
When it may be perfectly fine.
Yeah, the server itself is there, but you're not actually getting to the server. You're getting served content from a CDN in between, and the CDN is serving up error page instead of the real content. My last point I was going to make was that there was some data in here that said researchers warn webmasters not to ignore the issue. According to their tests, 30% of the Alexa top 500 websites, so that's a lot, 11% of the Department of Defense domains, and 16% of the URLs from a 365 million URL sample obtained from a Google BigQuery archive were potentially vulnerable to CPDOS attacks. So that's a lot. 30% of the top 500.
And what's the mitigation? Aside from making the CDN providers follow the HTTP standard?
Go in and there were two main mitigations. Go in and tell the CDN not to cache error pages, or add a no cache header to your error pages when you return from the server in the first place. So,
okay.
Those were the two major ones. Although clearly the longer term fix is that CDNs shouldn't be caching things that aren't or shouldn't be cacheable in the first place. And if for some reason they are ignoring the cache header, for example, then you might still be hosed. I don't know if that's the case.
Right.
But
okay.
Yeah. Fun, huh?
Cool.
Okay. My second one was I
did see this one too.
The Mercedes-Benz app was glitched for a bit last Friday. So I don't have a Mercedes-Benz. So and I guess none of my
either.
None of my cars have an app. But this was for a while last Friday. Mercedes car owners have said that the app they use to remotely locate, unlock, and start their cars was displaying other people's account and vehicle information. So, you swipe open your app and the car you're looking at is not your car, and the information you're looking at is not your information. You could see the other person's recent activity. I presume that means like call activity. I'm not sure what else the
location.
Yeah, maybe location. I don't know. I didn't write down at least what it was. But phone numbers. You sounds like some of them like called the other person, perhaps. And so that's no bueno. So the one of the comments in here, though, was that the lock and unlock and engine start stop features didn't work. So the other customers said they did not attempt to test either feature. Yeah, that was probably the wiser choice.
Right.
But the Mercedes actually did release a statement that basically said the information displayed was cached information, not real-time access to the account. No financial info was viewable, nor was it possible to interact with or determine the live location of the vehicle associated with the account. Quote, blah, blah, blah. When we became aware of the issue, we took the system down, identified the issue, and resolved it. So they didn't actually say what it was, at least not there, but that was a kind of a interesting little lapse.
Everything is connected anymore.
Internet of what? Yeah. Yeah.
The S in IoT stands for security.
Keep telling yourself that.
However that joke goes.
Yeah. I don't know why. I have heard that before, but I find that funny. Oh gosh. Yeah. I should get a sticker for that.
We should make stickers out of that.
S in IoT stands for security.
Remember, kids.
Okay. That's funny. Okay. That one was a pretty small one. So I do have kind of a bonus article.
Mm.
Yeah. So this was actually one that Wayne posted in our Slack this week. And this could probably be considered follow-up because we have talked about this before, but there was we didn't talk about this specific thing, but something similar to this. There was a worm, a cryptojacking worm that was used to infect a bunch of Docker images up on Docker Hub. And what it would do was keep the functionality of the container intact, so whatever the container was supposed to be doing, but it would also start its own process and mine some Monero. So
of course,
if if you used one of the suspect or malicious images, then you were kindly donating the use of your CPU for some poor starving person. So
sure.
Anyway, this said that so the vulnerability is called Graboid, and was it says it was downloaded. The images that were infected were downloaded more than 16,000 times, and that over 2,000 vulnerable hosts were seen running or communicating to the addresses configured the command and control channel in here. So, yeah.
Well, there you go.
The final quote in here was that there are on average 900 active miners at any given point in time. So, a little bit of a.
There you go.
Gotta know where your images are coming from. Make sure that they're a trusted source. Yeah. Just because you can grab a quick image of maybe another thing would be don't grab an image in the first week or two after it's released. Wait a month.
Or like anything else, grab images from a reputable source, I suppose.
Well, I mean get them from the source of whatever it is, as opposed to
a copy or someone else's
SQL Server image.
Yeah.
So, all right. How about something fun? What do you got for me tonight?
So my something fun, years ago, I think 2012, 2013, you remember the smartwatches?
Of course.
Before the Apple Watch.
Absolutely.
I had a Pebble.
I remember you having a Pebble.
I loved my Pebble because it was actually round, and it was a watch first and foremost, and it was thin and tiny and nice, and I still have it. I actually pulled it out to look at it. I found an article. I had heard rumblings about this, but I hadn't been paying attention till I stumbled across this today. iFixit had an article today about, or I don't know if it was today, but iFixit had an article about a group of ex-Pebble engineers, because Fitbit had bought it and then discontinued it.
Yeah.
Who went out and got the original Pebble firmware and got all the appropriate stuff so that they could go build their own firmware and keep it out. And they called it, instead of the Pebble watch, they called it the Rebble, spelled Pebble, but with Rebel, the Rebble Alliance. And a engineer who used to work for Pebble, Catherine Berry, figured she would get maybe a couple hundred, maybe 1,000 people trying out her kind of custom firmware that she worked on. And it was her and a number of other people kind of on the side, just built this so that, a few hundred people could play around with their Rebel firmware and use their Pebbles. But 7 months later, there were over 100,000 accounts. Because the thing with the Pebble 2 is it required a cloud account. You had to have an account. So they replicated pretty much the entire Pebble ecosystem as open source shareware, and there are 200,000 accounts, and that is 10% of the total number of Pebbles that ever sold.
How is that possible?
It's amazing that these little tiny Pebble watches, which are black and white or low color, they're using e-ink instead of like the stuff that's on your Kindle instead of, LCD displays. Anyways, that's my something fun. And I actually want to go dig out my old Pebble now and go here and see if I can resurrect it with this new firmware and backend and see if I can play around with it.
Did they have the blessings of Fitbit?
Apparently they did.
Good for Fitbit.
Yeah. So it says, that they had archived Pebble's web and development assets, opened up the device's firmware, and worked with former Pebble and Fitbit developers inside a Discord channel. And then this Catherine Berry, between jobs, sprinted for 2 weeks to code up a replacement cloud infrastructure. And she figured, well, maybe we'll get 1,000 people to try it out. And they're up to 100,000, and it's now going strong. And it's kind of this cool little retro, but not retro, smartwatch thing going on. I think Pebble was one of the first Kickstarters. I have like 2 Kickstarters that kind of I really, really liked. And Eero was one, and Pebble was the other.
Wow.
So a lot of fun. That's my something fun.
That's fantastic. Okay, I love it. Okay, I have 2. One's something funny, and one's something fun, kind of. But my something funny is a link. Did you see this one? The what got retired last week?
Yes.
I guess most people who might be in our neck of the woods probably saw this, but the Air Force, that would be the United States Air Force, I guess, finally retires 8-inch floppies from its missile launch control system.
Next up, the 5 1/4.
Yeah. I mean, 8-inch floppies. Those
predate me, and my first computers as a kid were the Apple II was the 5 1/4-inch floppies were the ones I remember initially. I don't ever remember playing with 8-inch floppies. I remember seeing them, but I don't ever remember playing with or using them.
I'm in much the same boat. They had them. I remember having to like categorize them, like move them, file them, something like that down at the school when I was in high school. Uh-huh. But I never actually, to the best of my knowledge, had a computer that used one of them. But anyway, that means they're old. I don't know if you know that, Eric. So anyway, good for them. Good for them. It's good to step into the late 90s. Or maybe that would be the late 80s, I guess. No,
but it's less,
sorry.
early
80s.
less likely for like today. If you want to try to hack into people's systems, you'll just spread a bunch of USB sticks around on a college campus or something, and people will just use them. Imagine back in the early days, you just spread around a bunch of 8-inch floppies, with your malware to distribute them.
Gee, why is this here? Let me stick it in and see if what it is. All right. Anyway, that was my first one. I thought that was funny.
Awesome.
It's a great story. And then I had a friend at work send me a link. So this is my real something fun, I guess, was kind of bridges a couple of interests, but a friend down at work sent this to me. Can bees do math? Yes. Research shows they can add and subtract. So
what? I mean, well, now I have to read, because what does that mean?
That means that you've
they
seen
kill
the experiments
off some,
with rat,
and then they create new ones.
Right?
That's adding and subtracting. The bees make their numbers larger and smaller through biological means.
Yes, that's true. No, so there's a good subsection here is how to train a bee.
Are they watching the bee tap his foot like they have horses count? They stomp their feet where
No,
the
right.
bee flaps his wings.
No. So this is they basically have a Y maze, and then depending on the problem, the bees can basically be trained to see a math problem, and then they when they fly into the first section, and then if they fly through the correct answer, this is how they train them at least. They fly through the correct answer, they get sweet syrup. They fly through the wrong answer, they get bad syrup, or they get something that they don't like. And so the side of this looks like a well-controlled experiment. Let's see, I'm reading here a little bit. So the honeybees were individually trained to visit a Y maze-shaped apparatus. So basically, they used color for plus or minus. So basically, so they had shapes on a colored board, and blue meant plus, and yellow meant minus. So they would fly through a blue board that had 3 things on it, and since it's blue, the correct answer would be 4. And so if the bee flew through the 4 thing, then they would get the syrup, and basically they could train the bees. The bees would learn, and they could then do math in the future. That they would come back and they would choose to fly through the correct answer based on the quote unquote math problem. Come on, that's cool.
It's like, this just sounds like a machine learning algorithm. You just
well,
it's a biological machine.
Think of this as training a rat in a maze, right? So during testing with a novel number, so basically, after, let's see, let me give you a little bit more data here. So after 100 learning trials, bees learned that blue meant +1 while yellow meant -1. The bees could then apply the rules to new numbers. So during testing with a novel number, bees were correct in addition and subtraction of one element 64 to 72% of the time. The bees' performance on tests was significantly different than what would be expected if the bees were choosing randomly, which would be chance level performance, or 50% correct incorrect. So clearly not all of them, but more than just
more than
what
statistically
they would do for
probable,
statistically significant.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting, huh? Come on, that's cool. That's something fun. Okay.
It is. Although I'm asking why.
Well, so they go a little bit here for what's the point, and why is this so there's a question here. Why is it a complex question? Because let's see, numerical operations such as addition and subtraction are complex questions because they require 2 levels of processing. First, to comprehend the value of the numerical attributes, and the second level to manipulate them in working memory. So it's an abstract concept.
So can you apply this to your what were you trying to do? Steal a bunch of bees? What do you call it when there's a bunch of bees swarming? Oh yeah, your swarm trap.
No.
You'd have to go train all those bees
If there's
first.
a practical application for this, I don't know what that is. I think the learning from this is nature is more wonderful than we give it credit for sometimes.
There you go. That's cool. Yes. Go bees. You can tell it's late. I'm getting a little loopy.
I was going to say, we're getting into the giddy part of the recording. Maybe we should be done.
Right.
Okay, dude.
Have a good night, John.
Have a good night. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.